Let's now take a look at the Consulate General of India in New York, one of the strongest representation of the Indian diaspora in the United States through many initiatives and virtual programs to celebrate Indian heritage, culture, arts, and language. On that, recently the Indian Consulate presented a virtual book discussion on a different take and NRI view of India in tradition of Ram, Krishna, and Gandhi. The book has been written by Dr. Balram Singh, who addressed all on the virtual discussion discussing several aspects of his book. The book reflects on the global Indian diaspora of NRIs who are essential link between India and the rest of the world, bringing culture and traditions. The book discussion saw Consul General Radhir Jaiswal along with Professor Manisha Mehrotra and Jeffrey Armstrong moderating the event. Here are some highlights from the virtual event on a different take and NRI view of India in tradition of Ram, Krishna, and Gandhi.
The cultural mission and practice in India, that there is nothing beyond your discussion and conversation. Especially I read India's constitution that says that in Article 51A said that is the duty of every citizen of India to develop a scientific temper. So I got more emboldened even as a scientist, and I thought I can take on anything and everything with my best intentions. The most important thing that I thought is going to be a message that needs to be conveyed to the rest of the world, that what India has been and could be. And also in the process, I realized that there is so much communication that needs to be done to Indians, especially in the intellectual class, the political class, and the iconic class of models, role models like athletes and film industry or something like that. I took upon everybody. And so one of the last point I want to make is that one of the issues that came up, taken on so many people in India, is a very litigated country, and people will get offended very easily if they find out that you wrote something about them like that. And so the publisher said that you have to get somebody to write forward so that at least you are protected. And so I contacted Dr. Subramanian Swamy. And he's such a kind man. He has come several times to my campus, and he knows that I mean the best for everybody, actually, even those who I'm criticizing sometimes. That has included sometimes the diplomatic corps. And I'm so glad that Consul General has not minded that I said, but my intention was always to make the best. Their job, my job, everybody else's job, and just like we want to consider Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So I'm very grateful to Dr. Subramanian Swamy that he agreed, and he wrote 7 pages of foreword. So I think I'm well protected, and now I see that India's real culture, real practice that is practiced by the Consul General, that is practiced by the people who are reading this book and have written some reviews. And I'm so grateful to Jeffrey Armstrong, who is my great friend for last 15, 20 years, with whom I have differed a lot. And then we still remain friends, which is the culture of India. And I met with Professor Manisha Mehrotra maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and have learned so much about what she does and what she's interested in. I'm learning more and more every time.
This book, it somehow goes deep into the mind of a person who's grappling with various issues of his own existence, at the same time of India. And that is this mind space, trying to unlock the mind of a person who's deeply rooted, and what he thinks makes for a very interesting read and makes you ponder and think harder. My own sense going through the book was that it is a book that must be read slowly, for you have to absorb it to understand. It is something like yoga. You have to do a little bit of it on a daily basis so that you go to the deepest point of its understanding and observation. That is a session that I would have for the readers. But just to say that I look forward to this discussion. It is a fascinating book. And with that, I look forward to the engaging discussion, and I look forward to what our dear friends, Mr. Armstrong and Madam Mehrotra, would have to say, and what take Professor Singh would have on the book. Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful discourse. And as I've been reflecting upon it, uh, there's a saying, because when I studied psychology, this is obviously something that you think about, is that is there's a chemistry between people, but that someone should be a scientist and be a chemist and also be a psychologist and a sociologist and have a wide vision and scope of humanity. It reminds me of something when you're rooted in a small town, you always have small town understanding. But when you go to the big city, then you have both perspectives. And this particular book feels to me like a chemistry set. It feels like Professor Singh has given us the tools for conversing about humanity, but he's given them to us as a scientist, as a sociologist, from a perspective inside the culture and from its most biodiverse, primal place where he was rooted, and then he went all the way to the peak of the mountain. So he's given us the entire perspective. Though we've been friends for so many years, when I read the book, I was just so excited and delighted to see that he'd given us a chemistry set for talking about each other without having any conflict, a humorous looking at our various foibles and different aspects of us, seeing how we mix together. So to me, it's such a brilliant contribution to this conversation because it ensures that it remains a friendly conversation as we continue to ask what's going to happen as we continue combining together. So that's my first observation, that it sets an amazing scientific context for a social conversation that's often been thought difficult to have. He made it so easy. He's taught by his example how user-friendly it is.
That entire heritage of India, what we talking here in this book, has been so beautifully, portrayed in the ghats and the banks of Ganges, what I have grown and seeing it. So in this book, actually, I got to reflect my childhood and the olden days when most of the people in India had a daily ritual of going to the ghats on the banks of Ganges, taking bath, which was a very necessary thing to do to begin the day for. But now, as the time has rolled forward, we have all got busy with our own different things. But still, there is that little, I would say, that Indian thing, the Indianness, which is still there. There are very few cities in India where we still get to see that. So, from my perspective, I read that entire book and I found it a very refreshing take on few of the things. Like, actually, I had never thought of Lord Ram or Krishna to be an NRI perspective. So when I read that word, it was really something very strange and a very deep thought to ponder upon. And the way Sir explained it in the book, it actually gave a lot of insights that how our Vedic rishis, the Vedic traditions of the Sanatan Parampara, all of the rishis and all of the, the whole elitist group of the people who had compiled different entire Vedic Samhitas had said things, but they were all symbolic. So in today's time, we need modern rishis like Balram Singh Sir, who could really, decipher those and decode those meanings, those metaphors.